Taoyuan City's Food Labeling and Food and Beverage Hygiene Self-Regulations Manual. Chapter 5. Labeling Requirements for Bulk Foods and Food Vending Locations. This chapter will introduce the correct labeling that eating and drinking establishments should have. It is divided into two sections. Section 1. Bulk Foods Labeling Requirements. Section 2. Labeling Requirements for Food Vending Locations. All sections can be found in pages 51 to 62 of the manual. In accordance with Paragraph 2, Article 25 of the Act governing food safety and sanitation, the Ministry of Health and Welfare may prescribe in a public announcement on the items, labeling methods, and scope of specific food products supplied at food vending locations. The food vending locations include various restaurants, buffet restaurants, banquet restaurants, fast food restaurants, food stalls, hotels, and other food and beverage outlets, as well as central kitchens, group meal factories, school kitchens at all levels, hospital kitchens, and airplanes that can directly supply food and beverage. Bulk food means that the product is either without a package while vending, or with packaging that is not recognizable as unpacked or that is not sealed. Food vendors should label them with their product name, country of origin, and display in traditional Chinese. Objects of regulation such as peanuts, azuki beans, chicken, pigs, sheep, cattle, and other 20 agricultural and livestock products should be labeled. The labeling method can be zone labeling, single origin labeling, label labeling. If products sold are labeled with origin traceability information such as CAS, such information could serve as the only labeling. For detailed labeling requirements, please refer to pages 51 to 52 of the manual. Food vending locations that supply food using raw materials, such as pork or edible pork parts, should label the country of origin. As the picture on the upper left, Taiwan is labeled in the raw material of pork chops on the product label, indicating Taiwan as the original of the pork. In the lower left picture, the product label says Boston shoulder, indicating UK as the origin. The country of origin will be labeled in traditional Chinese, as shown in the posting method on the right, and the methods of labeling can be cards, menu notations, marks, or signboards. In the case of tags and menu notations, the length and width of each character on the label shall not be less than 0.4 centimeters. In case of other labeling types, each shall not be less than 2 centimeters. Pay attention to the place of origin on the labels of pork, pork fat, and other related ingredients used in your store, so as to reduce consumers' doubts and penalties. If the food products containing beef and edible parts of cattle should be prominently labeled in traditional Chinese with the country of origin or words of equivalent meaning. It should be noted that beef and edible parts of cattle exclude cow's milk and beef fat. For example, in the raw material of the product label on the left, the beef is labeled with Australian imports, indicating that the origin of the beef is Australia. Its labeling method is the same as that of pork, and it can be labeled in the form of cards, menu notes, labels, or signs. The labeling method should be as shown on the right picture. In the case of tags and menu notations, the length and width of each character on the label should not be less than 0.4 centimeters. In case of other labeling types, each shall not be less than 2 centimeters. If there are multiple countries of origin of the beef on the product label, they must be labeled in order of content. If the food vending location selling restricted meat or fat injected meat products It should be marked in traditional Chinese that the food is reconstructed, combined, fact-injected, or words of equivalent meaning, and add the words supplied as cooked food only, or words of equivalent meaning. If it is labeled with menu notations, the length and width of the font should not be less than 0.2 centimeters. If it is labeled with other types, it should not be less than 2 centimeters. Those who sell tofu, soy milk, and other foods containing genetically modified or containing genetically modified in traditional Chinese. If it is labeled with menu notations, the length and width of the font should not be less than 0.2 centimeters. If it is labeled with other types, it should not be less than 2 centimeters. Currently, the GM foods that Taiwan has registered and permitted for import include soybeans, corn, cotton, coal, and beets. Hot pot food products in food vending locations with business registration, such as restaurants, snack stands, convenience stores, the principal ingredients of the hot pot should be marked on the menu, inserting cards, etc. If the hot pot is cooked with ingredients, the greatest quantity of or the declared principal ingredients should be labeled in traditional Chinese, such as Hokkaido Kongpu. On the contrary, if you use flavored seasoning to make hot pot, you need to list all the flavored seasoning in traditional Chinese, such as the pork bone spicy hot pot. If it is labeled with menu notations, the length and width of the font should not be less than 0.2 centimeters. If it is labeled with other types, it should not be less than 2 centimeters. Beverage shop chains, convenience stores, and fast food chains should pay attention to the labeling of caffeine beverages, the version of tea, total sugar and total calories, and labeling of fruit and vegetable juices. In the case of tags and menu notations, the length and width of each character on the label should not be less than 0.2 centimeters. In case of other labeling types, each shall not be less than 1 centimeter. If the preceding item is disclosed by QR code or other electronic means, the phrase "Scan here for label information" or an equivalent phrase should be displayed above or below the electronic label, and a mobile device capable of reading the code should be installed on site. For more relevant information, please refer to pages 59 and 60 of the manual. If the product in food vending locations is named after a specific species of fish, the contents of the product should contain the specific species of fish claimed in the name. If the contents do not contain the specific species of fish claimed in the name, but are prepared with spices or seasonings to provide the flavor of the specific species of fish claimed, the product name or a prominent place near the product name should be marked in the traditional Chinese with the word flavor or taste. For example, the product marked on the outer box of the ingredients is halibut slices, but the halibut is flat cod, not equal to cod. If the menu shows cod, it involves false labeling, causing consumers to misunderstand that the meal is cod. It is in violation of Paragraph 1, Article 28 of the Act governing Food, Factory, and Sanitation, and is subject to a fine of 40,000 Taiwan dollar to 4 million Taiwan dollar by Article 45 of the same Act. This sample menu should be correctly labeled flat cod or halibut to avoid being penalized. If a food vending location claims to use Japanese ingredients, the label should be in traditional Chinese and the ingredients should be marked in an identifiable way, such as cards, menu notations, marking or signages, indicating the place of origin of the ingredients to the prefecture. The name of the prefecture is not marked will violate Paragraph 2, Article 24 of the Consumer Protection Act and Article 56 of the same Act, which specifies the deadline for the correction. Those who do not make corrections within the deadline will be fined 20,000 to 200,000 The name of the prefecture is mislabeled. A fine of 40,000 to 4 million Taiwan dollar will be imposed by Paragraph 1, Article 28 of the Act governing food safety and sanitation. The presentation of this chapter has come to an end. Please refer to the pages 51 to 62 of the manual for more information of labeling requirements for bulk foods and food vending locations. Thank you all for listening.